Hello. This video, I'm gonna let you stare at a map for the whole video. What do I think of the Electoral College? Here in the United States of America, we are called the United States for a reason. Because we have many different states. It's 50 right now, despite the fact that a few years ago a presidential candidate said 56. And those states have certain rights and responsibilities and controls and powers the states are not supposed to be. Sometimes maybe it works out that the government not following the Constitution makes the states in a way just another branch of the national government, but that's not supposed to be the situation. Just in case somebody watching this has no clue about what the Electoral College is, maybe you live in America, and if you're that clueless, please don't vote. Vote if you know what's going on. But it's, in a way, you're being patriotic if you don't understand things and you don't go vote. Or maybe you live outside of the United States of America. YouTube has a worldwide reach. The legislature has 2 senators from each state and a certain number of representatives that's based on the population. At the founding of the country, the Constitution first named 1 representative for every 30,000 people, with the states that had less than 30,000 people getting at least 1 representative in the House of Representatives. We vote on the president in November, but America is not a pure democracy. Our founding fathers were considering what a democracy is and the upsides and downsides of a pure democracy when they designed the Constitution so that we would not have a pure democracy, but instead a democratic republic. And because we have a democratic republic, people do get say, but it's not a direct vote. So who wins the presidency is based on, instead of a direct vote, they get electoral college votes from the states. Each state gets the number of electoral college votes that is equal to the number of representatives and senators that state sends. So the smallest state gets at least 3 votes. And we stopped, I should have looked it up, I don't remember what year. We stopped having 1 representative for every 30,000 people when a fixed number of 435 representatives in the House of Representatives was picked by a constitutional amendment. And it makes sense to me to do that, because our country is growing, and if it was 1 for every 30,000 people, that would be 300 million people. That's a lot of numbers to do in my head. 300 million, 30,000, about 100,000 legislators. Maybe that would be too many. There are 2 states that split their votes, Maine and Colorado. The Constitution does not forbid them from doing that. I think we should ban them from doing that because it violates the spirit of, or the concept behind, the underlying principles behind the Electoral College, which is you win the state, you get the state's votes. Now, do I think it's a good idea? Yes, and I've got 3 reasons why I think the Electoral College is a good idea. 1 is it reminds us of the principle of the states and the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution, which let us know any powers not enumerated, or in other words listed, in the Constitution for the federal government are for the states or the people. So the states, they have a wide range of things they can do as long as they're not violating people's basic human civil rights. The 14th Amendment was passed because the southern states, after losing the Civil War about slavery, were refusing to acknowledge the citizenship of the freed slaves and their children and making their lives miserable. But if there is a state that wants to ban Uber, they get to do that. If there's a state that wants to ban dry cleaning at home, those are some potential examples. The state gets to do that, and that's one reason. Without the Electoral College, rural and or small states or places would be completely ignored. If we did not have the Electoral College and we had a purely democratic presidential election where it was just the votes of the straight up popular vote, the presidential candidates would fly from New York City to Los Angeles to San Francisco, back to New York City, maybe they'd go to Miami too, and they would ignore so much else. And so small states like little Rhode Island there, you might not even be able to see it with the resolution of the camera, but this bigger, this red line here has got a little orange spot next to it. That little orange spot is Rhode Island. They would be completely ignored. Maybe they don't get a lot of attention now, but they would get even less attention if we had a vote that was purely democratic, if Rhode Island did not get 3 Electoral College votes. And the last reason I'm giving for why the Electoral College is a good thing is it minimizes the damage of vote fraud, which it's definitely out there. How common it is, that's hard to measure because people who commit voting fraud are doing something illegal, so they aren't going to brag about it. And some vote fraud's not as obvious. If there's somebody who's dead and they voted, you know there was some kind of vote fraud going on. If the person who voted but didn't vote isn't dead, and they don't go to the polls to vote and find out somebody already voted for them, then how do you quantify that? But the Electoral College limits the damage because hypothetically in 4 years, if there are 2 million dead people in Chicago that vote, or in other words, 2 million dead people whose names are on the voter rolls, and a living person walks into the polling place and says, I am so-and-so, but they don't say, he's dead, I'm not really him, and they go into the polling booth and vote. All that damage is limited to just that one state's Electoral College vote. And so it limits the damage. So there could be some massive voter fraud in one state, and that would sway a close election if they engage in voter fraud. But if it's, well, it would be worse if you had millions of dead voters mixed in with all the legitimate voters in a purely popular presidential election. Thank you for watching. Long live the Electoral College. Have a good day.